Welcome to Veterans Archives, where we are dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes. We hope you enjoy this story. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share our videos. Check us out across all social media. Be sure to like and share those pages as well. And for more information, go to www.veteransarchives.org. Today is Monday, April 14th. And we're talking with Floyd Price, who served the United States Navy. So good afternoon, Floyd.
Good afternoon to you.
All right, great to see you this afternoon on a nice sunny day.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yep, it's always good to be seen, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll start out today with when and where were you born?
I was born April 25th, 1927 in Foote Hospital in Jackson, Michigan.
Okay, so you're coming up on a birthday.
Yes.
All right, well, happy early birthday.
I'll be 98.
Oh my gosh. Well, you don't look 98.
Sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So did you grow up in Jackson?
No. We left there when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
I started school there, and work was scarce. My dad worked for a company that made rims, Kelsey Hayes, and they closed the factory, I think, there in Jackson. He went to Detroit for a while, and then he transferred to Motor Wheel here in Lansing, and we came here. We lived in several places. Then my folks divorced when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And I went to live with my grandparents. They were wonderful people.
And then where did your grandparents live?
At that time, it was in Ovid.
Okay. And did you have brothers and sisters too?
No, I had brother and two sisters that died.
Oh, okay.
At birth.
Oh.
Well, the one sister that was younger than me lived 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in a log cabin with my great-grandmother in south of Jackson, and she was born in October, and the cabin wasn't very warm, and I don't know, she got pneumonia and died.
Oh, okay.
She was exactly the same age as my wife.
Really?
My wife's birthday was October 26th, and hers was October 31st.
Oh my gosh. You know, my younger brother was born on October 26th.
So it's
a few years later, but yeah. Yeah. So you went to live with your grandparents in Ovid.
Yeah.
Did you see your parents much after that?
Not a lot. My mother ran off with some guy, and my dad was still working. My grandfather also worked at Motor Wheel.
Okay.
So on Friday nights, I'd ride in. He worked the late shift, went in and worked at 10 o'clock, and I'd ride in with him on Friday nights, and my dad would get out of work at 10 o'clock and then go home with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived in a boarding house. But I never knew, actually I never knew my real name until I was about to get going into the Navy. I went by the name of Lloyd Bequeer. That was I think he was my father.
Uh-huh.
He's the only man I ever called father.
Yeah.
And but when I found out that my birth certificate said I was Floyd Price.
Okay, and so Price was your mom's maiden name then?
No, that was her first husband.
Okay, I understand.
And she was married 3 times.
Oh, all right.
They moved a lot. I went to 12 different schools and never graduated.
Oh my gosh.
I left I left home. I was back home. I left. I didn't get along with my stepfather, and I was in junior high school, and I worked at Sparrow Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in the kitchen. I started out washing pots and pans. I got 22.5 cents an hour.
Well, that was big money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they found out I was working too many hours going to school.
Uh-huh.
And I'd work from 4 to midnight, and I wasn't supposed to work past 10 o'clock. So I quit school. I went part-time to Central High School in Lansing, which is LCC now.
Yeah.
And then a couple year later, I got a job with a dry cleaning company in Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a plant. The chemical they used was outlawed in the city because it was toxic
Yeah.
So I worked there nearly a year, and then I asked my mother to sign for me to go in the Navy.
Okay, and that would have been...
That would be April of 1944.
Okay, so the World War II was
Still
going
going.
strong, yeah.
They were looking for warm bodies, so they didn't. I took my first examination. I only weighed 118 pounds,
Really?
and they had a 120 limit. But doctor said, "Well, we'll fatten him up."
Yeah. You'll make weight soon enough, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I went in. I took my basic at Naval Station in Green Bay.
Okay.
And we usually, it's 12-week deal, but they were wanting bodies real fast, so it was around about 5 weeks, all I training at.
Yeah.
I left there and went to Shoemaker, California. They used to say it's the only place in the country that you can stand up to mud up to your ankles and have sand blowed in your eyes at the same time.
Sounds like a great
bad.
place, Floyd.
It was a German prisoner camp
Uh-huh.
besides a military camp or prison. The German prisoners walked around free, and the American prisoners were locked up. But
the Germans are probably thankful to
the
be
Germans,
there.
you couldn't have chased them out of there.
Yeah, I'll
we
bet.
had a guy that spoke German, and he talked to a lot of them. And they were building. Every place you went from building to building had boardwalks
Uh-huh.
to get there, and they were building covers for these boardwalks. And so I left there, and they went to Treasure Island,
Okay.
and then I was assigned to the ship Riverside, the APA 102 Riverside. It was a new ship. It hadn't been only commissioned for 6 months. And after I was there for a while, they called 5 of us in and sent 4 of us to Treasure Island after I had been aboard the ship, sent back to Treasure Island to train to be radar plotter.
Mm-hmm. The radar was pretty new, right? It was a new...
Well, it was. The principle of it is still the same, I guess, but
yeah.
the equipment is altogether different. I trained mostly for surface plotter. That's what I wound up being.
Mm-hmm.
But I went aboard the ship as part of the command. It was a command ship. I think there was, I got a note. There was 51 officers and 524 enlisted on the ship. But under the command, there was 43 officers and 108 enlisted.
Okay.
I was a part of the command.
Mm-hmm.
They had built a special, right behind the stack, a special area for this command. We left out of San Francisco, and I was on watch. I sat up on a high stool with headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went out of the Golden Gate Bridge, it was stormy. The ship was doing a lot of moving.
Really?
And I got sick. And I couldn't wait. I kept watching the clock, waiting for my relief to come. And when he showed up, he was as sick as I was.
Oh, no.
So I spent the next 4 hours relieving him. But anyway, we left there. We were hauling a load of ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
We had a load of torpedo warheads and 16-inch shells. Unfortunately, we took a crew member on that had just got off in the ship that had hauling ammunition that had been hit.
So was he bad luck?
And he just got off in a 30-day leave.
Uh-huh.
And when he found out what we was hauling, he says, "How lucky do they think I'm going to get?" We took it to Pearl.
Uh-huh.
Unloaded at Pearl, or we didn't unload. Stevedores unloaded it, and then we left, and we went into the Marshalls. I very seldom knew where I was. Back then they didn't reveal. They didn't want you writing home and telling.
Oh, yeah.
So all our mail was censored. So you don't write on both sides of the paper because they may cut something out of.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. You're right.
So once in a while, I remember we had a wee talk, and a wee talk after the war was blown up by a test atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it still doesn't exist. And then we traveled around, I don't know how, we was at Mogmog Island. Mogmog Island was a beer island.
Oh, tell me about this.
Navy does not allow beer or any drinking on a ship.
Right.
So what they do is give you 3 cans of beer and send you over to an island. And you get your 3 cans of beer and back again. And Mogmog happened to be the island. Mm-hmm. I think it's still in the Marshalls. But then we wound up in the Philippines. Philippines was just being occupied, then it had already been taken back. And that's where we wound up loading troops, Army troops, mm-hmm. for the invasion of Okinawa.
Okay.
We took 32 ships, APAs. Most APAs, the Riverside was the largest APA, mm-hmm. other than its sister ship. The sister ship I can't even remember what the sister ship's name was. most APAs were about 62 foot wide, and Riverside was over 90 feet wide, and a little longer. We hauled about 18 LCVPs and 4 Mike boats. They were landing craft. And we hauled, I believe, was 1,200 troops.
That's a lot of people.
And we left the Philippines with 3 columns of APAs loaded. I don't know if they were all, I know some of them were just supplies. And we weren't the first there at the Philippines, or Okinawa. We weren't. I went in the second day. I can't remember. We took, I think we was just loaded with supplies. And of course, I never set foot on the island. I could remember in the distance of a water tank. And the water tank was up on legs, and one leg had been shot. It leaned over, and it looked like you couldn't lay your hand on a place that didn't have a bullet hole in it. I think that was the only thing that stuck up on the beach. Everybody shot at it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the landings at Okinawa were not real bad. The Japanese had went inland and dug in, and the worst fighting was later when the troops had to try to take out them. Of course, it wasn't too long after that they dropped the atomic bombs, both bombs. We were set in Buckner Bay, which is in Okinawa. It was named after the general that formed the invasion. And we would get, then of course shortly after the second bomb was dropped, the Japanese surrendered. But all Japanese didn't realize it.
Especially on Okinawa, right?
Right.
They didn't get word.
The people of Okinawa was committing suicide. They're jumping off in cliffs. Things, I didn't see any of that, but found out later. They were scared to death of it, thinking that the things was going to torture them and everything.
Right.
They were, but as we sat in Buckner Bay, general quarters would go off about at 4 o'clock in the morning and stay till about 10. And so we used to say we'd get breakfast was an apple and GQ. And that went on. One morning, we had 3 night fighters was returning, and a Japanese torpedo plane was following them in, and they never knew it. He dropped a torpedo on the Pennsylvania, which was anchored out, and the Pennsylvania, it hit the stern, and it didn't sink it, but it put the stern down underwater.
Yeah.
And we happened to have a second-class bosun's mate that his father was a first-class bosun's mate on the Pennsylvania, and he got to go over and see his father and see if he was all right and everything. The ship survived, and later was blown up by a test of atomic bomb.
Really?
But I have run into several people in different places that said their father or brother or somebody was on the Pennsylvania
So-
when they heard that I was in Okinawa.
Yeah.
But then we stayed. We were there a good 3 months or more, and we never fired our guns. The shore battery took care of anything that, like, we got raided. We put up smoke screen, so when the general alarm go off, you didn't go to your battle station. You went to your fire station,
Oh, okay.
and you sat there in the smoke, and you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, and you know. It was more worrisome than, I got thinking, well, all he's got to do is drop it in the smoke and he got you. But
Right.
it never happened.
Yeah.
Well, after 3 months or so, my first day on the riverside, they made me the head of our command group, which was a Commodore. But he didn't wear Commodore stripes, he wore captain stripes. He was a retread from World War I.
Oh, so he'd been around for a little while.
Yeah, he was a wonderful person. And our executive officer was also a captain. And then the ship's commander was a captain. So we had 3 captains with captain stripes. And they told me where to sit. And when the captain came out, why, all I did was follow him. Well,
That was your job to follow him around?
I didn't know, yeah. Well, that lasted 2 days, and he says, I don't need you.
Right.
I said, I didn't think so.
Let me follow this captain
Yeah,
around.
yeah. At first, I didn't know which captain was what. But anyway, he was a very wonderful man. He wasn't very gung-ho. Messenger would come up and salute and click his heels, and the Commodore would say, "Don't break your arm, son."
Kind of a down-to-earth person then, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Riverside was attack ship. It had 2 5-inch guns, 2 twin 40s, and 18 20-millimeter cannon. I was assigned. I tried out once for a hot shellman on the 5, and I didn't work out very good. You had a pair of asbestos gloves, and they come up to your elbow, and you're supposed to catch the shell empty casing
Yeah.
so it didn't get banged around, because the Navy in a 5, the Army is a 105. They use fixed ammo, or not fixed ammo. Navy uses fixed ammo. The Army uses projectile and powder bags behind it. And the way the Navy uses their big 16 inches.
Right.
And so these casings come flying out of the gun, you're supposed to catch it. And most of them go rattling across the deck. But anyway, I wound up being a loader for the 20 millimeter. But after the war ended and we came back, we went to come into San Pedro. I can remember a banner that had been tacked up on a building, and one end of it has kind of fallen down. Welcome home. That was our only welcome we ever got. They used to talk about the Vietnam warriors that weren't appreciated. So, but we didn't get much of a welcome. The welcomes were all over with because the war had been over for 3 months or 4 months.
Right, right. And most of the big things happen in New York City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were no use for the command anymore on the ship, so I was taken off in the Riverside.
Uh-huh.
And I was reassigned to the Warren, an APA Warren, which Warren had served very bravely in the Pacific. It was the same age as about the Riverside, but it was a smaller ship.
Mm-hmm.
It had lost a few of its crew, and we left. That was in San Francisco. May. We left out of San Francisco. We were on our way to Hawaii, and we were out maybe 5 or 6 hours, and we got orders to return. I don't know why, still don't know. And so we come back to there in Frisco, and we stayed there for 2 or 3 days, and then they give us orders to go take the ship to the Panama Canal and up the Gulf into the Mississippi and return it to a merchant.
Mm-hmm.
They were selling it to merchants. And we worked on the ship for, I don't know, a month or 2 months, taking everything off from it, putting cables into, or greasing them and putting them away. And when we got down to the point where we couldn't live on the ship any longer, we lived in barracks on the beach. And then we worked on the ship for, I don't know, another month or so. And
Mm-hmm.
well, then I was reassigned to Louisiana, not Baton Rouge, but the main city there in New Orleans.
Yes.
I went to New Orleans, and every day we'd go down to check the billboard to see but what they called my deal was a diaper cruise. I was supposed to stay the duration of the war in 6 months. Well, the 6 months was up already, but I wasn't. They weren't in no way letting me out. And so I'd have to go down and look at the bulletin board, see if I was going home or I was going someplace else. Well, I got in a little trouble. We was mustering, and when we left muster, me and another guy was traveling back to the barracks, cutting across the lawn, and some guy hollered, "Get off the grass." And I turned around, some guy in a T-shirt, and I told him to kiss my ass. So he come and wanted my name and serial number, and I wouldn't give it to him because he wasn't in uniform.
Uh-huh.
So he called the guy over that was in uniform, and I gave it to him, and I went up to my bunk, and wasn't only half hour. There was a call over the squawk box to report to the master at arms shack.
Oh boy.
So I reported, and they said they had put me on Captain Mass. So I went to Captain Mass. 2 Marine guards escorted me in to a guy who was sitting there with all the brass you could muster, holding the letter, reading it. He says, "This sounds kind of serious, son." I said, "Yes, sir." I don't know what was on the letter, still don't know. He says, "Well, I'm going to give you 5 days bread and water solitary confinement."
Wow, for telling some guy to kiss your ass.
Yeah, so back to the barracks, packed my stuff, got my sea bag, and they marched me up to the. It was about a mile and a half. It was a Marine prison. They took all my stuff away, took all my clothes, gave me prison clothes, had peas written all over it. Took me to a cell that wasn't any much bigger than 2 bunks wide. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing on it. It was just no flatbed. And they told me that at evening chow time, which I got 2 slices of bread and all the water I wanted, and I got a blanket and a mattress. I served for 3 days that way, and we in the morning time they'd give us a razor and we could shave and we get our 2 slices of bread and water and talk to the guys, and they said, well, the 3rd day they got to feed you. So 3rd day come and you have to stand in front of your cell. There's a window in the door. It's only about 8 inches tall and 2 inches wide. Mm-hmm. And but they come along and tell you to get in line. Well, they went by me. I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." I said, "This is my 3rd day." He says, "You got a straight 5."
Oh no!
So 4th day came up, and they says, "You're getting out today." Well, I'm not arguing with them. Yeah. So I had to get dressed in my undress blues. Took me up to the guard shack. I stood at parade rest from 8 in the morning till 11. And then they said, we're going back to Naval Base. Mm-hmm. So I got all my stuff, my sea bag, everything. Marched me back to the Master at Arms shack. The phone was ringing when I got there, and he says, "What's your prisoner's name?" And he said, "Price." He says, "Take him back. He's got another day to serve."
Oh, you got.
And I am just about not in. So they marched me back. The guard up at he said, "Hey, what'd you do, run back?" I said, "No." So he said, "I'm not going to put you back in prison clothes. Because you're going to get out tomorrow."
Yeah.
So I went through the same routine the next day. Well, first thing I headed for was it was noon. I got chow, and of course I'm wanting more and more of everything. I couldn't eat half what I took. But anyway, it wasn't only about 2 o'clock in the afternoon I got orders that I was going to be shipped out. I was going to the same place that I'd already been assigned before I'd got in trouble. Uh-huh. And the others had already left. I was going by myself. I was assigned to 2 destroyers which were tied together in the St. Johns River in Florida, Green Cove Springs, Florida. So I went there, and we was putting these destroyer escorts into mothballs. Uh-huh. And but anyway, when I was taking my amphibious training in San Diego at the Marine base there, I took up boxing. And some of these guys that I sparred with, I was only weighed 128 pounds. And, they bragged me up how good I was, you know. Uh-huh. And my first fight, I about got killed. But anyway, I had got hit in the chest, and it got real sore, and it never quit being sore. And through the years, I didn't have no problem with it when I was wearing dungarees and cambray shirts.
Yeah.
But when I would get dressed in my dress uniform, it was so tight, then it would hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I lived with it. I didn't go to sick bay until I was aboard this destroyer escort, or DEs, and finally it got so bad that it was getting larger. I went to sick bay, and the doctor says, "Oh, you got it. That's got to go." So they called in a amphibious truck out to the ship, and it took me to Jacksonville Naval Base in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they operated on me and took it out. It was the size of a chicken egg.
Oh my gosh, that was from the boxing?
Well, that's the only thing that I could lay it to.
Yeah.
But and so then I went back after I had recuperated at the hospital. They went back to ship and put me on light duty, and I wasn't doing nothing. But we had 3 chief bosun's mates on the 2 ships, and all I did was see that they were fed.
Oh.
And a lot of times 2 of them would be on liberty, and the other one would say, I'll go to the chow line. You don't have to do nothing. So, but then all of a sudden I got orders to go back to Green Bay, and I was going to be discharged.
Oh, okay.
So
how
that was in June of '46.
So you were in for quite a while then.
From 44, April of '44. My time didn't start though till I was out of boot camp, and that was in June
Okay.
sometime.
All right.
But went through that getting out of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before they'd make you sit there, and the ones that were going to re-up, you'd have to make you sit there and go through their re-up before they'd let you go.
Oh, jeez.
But anyway, I got out. I was down at the train station to catch a train back to Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an officer started talking to me, and I, of course, was addressing him as sir, and he says, "You don't have to do that anymore." I said, "No, I guess I've got a habit of
That's kind of how
call
you do
everybody
it, right?
sir."
Yeah.
And but then I left and went back here to Lansing. Well, we lived in the South End, and I could have stayed off for 6 months and drawn unemployment, but
Yeah.
one of the guys that I went in with had been a window cleaner before he went in, and he went back with that company. So I thought, they said they needed somebody that could run either a bosun's chair or something like that, and they knew I had done that. So my first job with them, I went to work with Lansing Window Cleaning Company. My first job was a Kellogg Center, and they just built it
Oh, they're in East Lansing?
in MSU.
Yeah.
And they hired another guy out of Chicago to work with me on it. And he was a little scary because he'd lost most of his fingers on his right hand. And he had a hard time holding a rope.
Yeah, I'll bet.
He
I'll
used
bet
to
he did.
take it and put it under his foot
Uh-huh.
to tie off. And that, I was on the other end. I wouldn't let let go until he got tied up. But anyway, I worked for them for 12 and a half years. Then I went into business for myself, or not, I went with a partner. He'd also been in the Navy, but he was 9 months younger than me. And he didn't go in till November of 44. And he'd kind of started up a little business of his own. And he asked me one day if I would come with him. And I finally said, yep, I'll do it. So we were together 12 and a half years, and we separated. And I started up Capital Window Cleaning Company, and I run that for over 20 years.
Oh my gosh! So you
I had 40, putting there 45 years in, and in window cleaning. I did the state capitol. I did all the state building. Did City Hall for years. And the tower, I did that tower for 12 and a half years.
You talk about the Michigan National Tower?
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by that building.
Yeah. That was same age as I am.
Oh, goodness.
Elfrida, my wife, was in high school at that time. And she used to walk downtown to catch the bus out to the south end. And she'd see me hanging out one of them windows on the tower. And she'd, of course, we wound up on a blind date. That's this friend that was a window cleaner that before went in the Navy, his girlfriend was Elfrida's girlfriend. So they set us up for a blind date. I think we went to a movie or something.
Yeah.
Then I asked her later to go on a hayride with us later, and so after she finished high school, she worked for a company in the office, and then in 47 we were married.
Okay. So you got married before you started your business, and
Pardon?
You got married prior to starting your business, then.
Oh yeah, yeah. She was a good part of it. But we've been married 45 or 75 years.
Wow. Congratulations. Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Now so have you celebrated your 75th anniversary yet?
No. The kids they're not going to do, I think my birthday's coming up on a Friday or something. But the kids have got it all planned. My older daughter's coming home from Florida next weekend, and then they've got something planned at my youngest daughter. She lives out by Portland, and a big dinner for all my grandkids and great grandkids, except the ones that live in Texas. And my great granddaughter was in the Army.
Okay.
She there 20 years, come out a major, and her husband a lieutenant colonel, and he flew the Black Hawk helicopter, and she went to Texas A&M for culinary school, and now she teaches. She's got a school of her own, and she teaches cooking.
It must be pretty amazing to be old enough to see your great-grandchildren have careers. I mean, that's incredible.
My oldest great-granddaughter granddaughter, is in her 50s. My two daughters are in their 70s. I got great-granddaughter that's 34 or 35, grandson that's 30, and another one that's 22. One in Texas, that's where the granddaughter has her school.
Mm-hmm.
And the one in Texas graduated from Texas A&M, great-granddaughter.
Mm-hmm. So you have, how many children do you have?
2 daughters.
2 daughters. Okay.
2 daughters, two granddaughters, and 2 great-granddaughters, and a grandson. He was the first on my side of the family born since I was.
Wow, that's...
Male.
Yeah.
He works for a company that sells these belts that run equipment across,
Oh, like conveyor belts?
conveyor,
Yeah.
equipment. He lives in Grand Rapids,
Mm-hmm.
and he's single. And his mother keeps begging him to get married because she wants her daughter has already confessed that she's not going to have any children. She's in her 30s.
Uh-huh.
So
he's the only option.
he's the only option, and
Yeah.
it seems like he gets a girlfriend and something happens. He had one that was a nice girl, and she wanted him to move to Alaska. And he's mama's boy, and he ain't going to leave his mom.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. That happens. So you were in the you said you were in the window cleaning business for 44 years. So you must have retired in the 80s then? The 1980s?
91.
1991. What'd you do after retirement?
I worked at a golf course.
Really? Which one?
Summers. Bronson Bay and then one on South Washington. They own both of them.
Yeah, Bronson Bay, that's a nice golf course.
Yeah, it's gone now. This guy bought it and wanted it for hunting.
Oh.
But I worked there over 20 years. I took care of their driving range.
Uh-huh.
I didn't get paid or anything. I was a volunteer. But I got all the golf I wanted, and
That's pay enough, right?
I was still able to go to Florida and spend the winters and then come back and go back to work on the golf course. And I only worked 3 days. I only worked half a day, 3 days a week, and so it wasn't where it took all my time.
Right. Right. Well, you rode motorcycles too. We were talking about that before.
That was right after I got out of the Navy. The neighbor bought a new motorcycle, and I bought his old one.
Okay.
And then after Elfrida and I got together, she liked to ride. Her dad was deadly against me because he didn't like. He used to call me the damned old window cleaner.
Oh boy, you were the damned old window cleaner, huh?
Yeah. And it happened to be that I bought a Starfire, Oldsmobile Starfire.
Oh.
One of the first ones. They only build them about 4 or 5 years. And so I traded the Starfire in for another one. It wasn't a couple of weeks, I went over to my father-in-law's, in-laws, and it sat in the driveway. He'd went down and bought it after I'd sold it.
Why would he want a car from some damned old window
Well,
cleaner?
his brother-in-law came up here from Ohio, and that's the first thing he said. Why would you want a motorcycle or a car from a damned old window cleaner?
That's funny.
But mother-in-law died when she was only 62 or 42. Nice lady, nice lady. Father-in-law was like my dad and my stepdad. They were weekend drunks.
Oh, okay.
They were all the same age, and they always worked. They always kept their job, but from Friday night till Monday morning, they were drunk.
Oh, geez.
And that's why I couldn't get along with my stepdad. My dad was a jolly drunk. Of course, he'd remarried and had the woman had 2 girls, and he kind of faded out. And I went to see him a lot. And I even, after my dad had passed away, I even went and would go and fix my mother-in-law, or not mother-in-law, stepmother's medicines and stuff for her. And me and her was pretty good together. But my stepdad, until he quit drinking, he did later years. He quit drinking, but he was bad. He was very good. He was a merchant marine, and he worked on the Great Lakes but as soon as he was drinking, he was mean. He was mean. I don't know how many times he chased me out of the house, and we'd go around and around the house until the neighbor lady would open her door and holler. And next time around, I'd go across the street and up on her porch, and then she'd order him off in her property. And then they'd call my grandparents, and they'd come and get me.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, thank God for that neighbor lady, right?
Yeah. She was a tough old gal, too.
Well, you've lived quite a life.
Yeah, it was not a good childhood.
Yeah.
I never was able. After I played ball till I was 55 years old.
Oh.
Because I never played any sports in school because I had to work.
Right.
I got out of school at 3:30 and went to work at Sparrow Hospital at 4 o'clock. Worked till midnight. But I played ball. I started out playing fast pitch, and I got hurt a little bit. That was after I was married. I got hurt, nothing serious. So I thought, I better quit. Well, it wasn't only a year or two. Somebody come along and said, hey, they got a new game. It's called slow pitch.
Oh.
I said, what? Slow pitch. He said, you ought to try it. I don't know. Finally, they taught me, and I went and tried it, and I fell in love with the game. And then I belonged to the Moose Lodge. I was an officer at the Moose Lodge. And I played for the Moose team. And then when the manager there resigned, the guys all made me manager. I was a playing manager. And my biggest thing was that I could outrun everybody on the team. I was 10 years older.
Yeah.
But I had a guy that I still keep in contact with him. He was one of our outfielders, and he'd challenge me every spring to a race, and he never did beat me. So.
Didn't learn his lesson the first or second time, did he?
He is a great guy.
Yeah.
Last name is Niece. Yeah, he was. I played for the Moose Lodge there until I resigned. The bad thing was that we we built a ball diamond behind the lodge there in Logan, and we'd have tournaments there, and to make money. Well, I'd turn all the money that I made into the lodge, and then when I needed equipment and stuff, I'd have to go to the lodge and get it. And then there was always some members saying, oh, we're spending too much money on the ball team, you know.
Right.
And it was our own money, but so I told him, I said, I'll stay, but I'll run my tournaments, and I keep all my money. and I'll buy my equipment out of it, and at the end of the year, whatever's left, I'll turn over to the lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can't do that. So I said, oh, I'm done. So it wasn't only 2 or 3 months, they called me up and said, hey, what you suggested, we decided that maybe we could do that. I said, no, I'm all done.
You had your chance.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, yeah.
I played for the Emga County News for a while, and then the editor of the news played on the team, and then the guy that owned Dart Insurance, one of the owners, he played on the team, and they were all arguing about which one was the slowest. One would say that the other one run with a piano on his back. And they were going to have a race. They challenged each other to a race at the high school track there in Mason. And I did a lot of work in Mason. And I wrote to them and said I think they both were pikers, and that I challenged the winner. That was $100 to charity. Well, it was way ahead of time to do it, so it got a lot of publicity out of the paper. So the day of the race, the high school, it's just a mob of people showed up.
Yeah.
John Dart was there. I don't know if you knew John Dart.
I did not.
He's part of LCC deal. He was an attorney and an insurance agent, but anyway, he was there, and he says, we can't get this many people to show up to the high school track team. So, but anyway, the two guys that had argued, the insurance man and the editor, had their race. The editor fell flat on his face coming out of the block.
Oh, no.
So they waited a while, and then I was going to race the insurance man. Well, I'd never run out of blocks before, and I think that was the other guy's fault or problem. So I said, no, I'm not going to try it. He did. So when the race started, they had a guy with a timer and another one with a camera. And he got a little jump on me coming out of the blocks. But the last 10 yards, I passed him. And the photograph they took, I think every store in Mason had it plastered on there. You couldn't see my one leg. It was up like.
Yeah, like you're running.
Part of the picture says, "One-legged window cleaner beats insurance executive." I still got the picture. And
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did have there. I've had a good time. I've had a good life.
Yeah,
My
sounds like
childhood wasn't what you'd call fancy, but
well, you made the best of it. And you made a good life for you and your family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. Just that how many years my wife has kept me going, and how much I care for her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a good woman.
My two daughters, and I've got two son-in-laws that I'd take them as sons any day. They're great, Mike and Bob.
Well, then really, I just have like one last question for you then. You know, like you said, things didn't start out so great, but you certainly have come out pretty good with your big family and your wife and your marriage of almost 75 years. That's incredible. You know, when someone listens to your story years from now, what message would you like them to take away? What message do you have for people?
I don't know. I don't know, just the only thing I could think of is, to do the best you can and don't look back, look forward. And I don't know how much time I got left, but I'm going to try to enjoy it.
Well, none of us know that, right?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
It's so many, nearly every old friend of mine, they're all gone, Navy buddies, they're all gone. I don't know of one of them that's alive. And I used to have a friend, and he was a barber in Mason. He owned a Cessna, and he used to, when I was out there working, he'd holler across the street, "You want to go to lunch?" I said, "Yep." I knew what he was talking about. We'd go out and jump in a plane, fly over to one of these little towns or around that had restaurants on the airstrip, have our lunch, and fly back. It was really enjoyable, and I forget our 50th anniversary. I got a card from him, and I just read it the other day. Said, "Your lunch buddy, your flying lunch buddy."
That's pretty awesome.
And he was 103 the last time I heard anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's gone now. Him and his wife were married 98 or 78 years.
Wow, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
That's just incredible. Well,
He,
well, Floyd, thanks for taking time out of your day to sit and talk with me. I really appreciate it.
well, I enjoyed it too. I hope I got everything in that was necessary, but I'm sure I'll think of something that I didn't say later on.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching Veterans Archives. We hope you enjoyed this veteran story. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share our videos, as well as checking us out on social media. We're on Facebook and TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. Be sure to check out those pages, share, and like. And for more information about what we do, go to www.veteransarchives.org.